Strong and bold, but not very tall. If you can't see me behind this lectern, I'm sorry. But which reminds me, I'm here, from Colorado, and some of the guys that are with you today from Colorado Professional Firefighters are about 19 feet tall. And so when I'm anywhere near them, I feel a lot shorter, but it makes me tougher. Now, what I want to start with is the last thing that Sandy Levin said. He said, give them hell. Which reminds me of the old Harry Truman story, and this is going to be your job. They said, give them hell, Harry. He says, I don't give them hell. I tell the truth, and they think it's hell. Okay, that's what's going on here. The other day, we had a Twitter town hall. So I'm okay with some of the technology, but Twitter town hall, the things were going back and forth, and there's this one tweet that says, public employees don't pay taxes. And it was from a gal named Laura. I could give you her last name. We can worry about that later. And I said, I'm going, okay, now how do you respond to something like this? It's just so outrageous. So I said, Laura, you got to do it in 140 characters, all right? So, Laura, you're such a joker. Of course public employees pay taxes. She then writes back, and she says, well, maybe they pay taxes, but they use up a lot more taxes than they pay. So now I'm thinking that I'm like on Saturday Night Live, and I'm Chevy Chase, and I'm with Jane Curtin. How many of you remember that, okay? So I'm going, okay, I want to say, Laura, you ignorant... But I didn't. What really crossed my mind was the fact, the service that you all provide, that teachers provide, that policemen and women provide, that maintenance workers provide. And so my job is both personal and political. Some of you know I have a daughter with epilepsy. And I can give you, this was the thought that actually crossed my mind when this lady, said, well, they use up a lot more in taxes than they pay. One time, I had to go to work early. I served in the state senate in Colorado, and one of my law partners went over to pick up my daughter who has epilepsy. As he was driving to help take her to school, she had a seizure. Did he take her to the emergency room? No. Did he take her to the clinic? No. You know where he took her? He took her to the firehouse. They knew what to do, all right? And as I say it, I get a little choked up because this is personal. The services you provide are critical to guys like me, to people throughout your neighborhoods, just like the teacher is, teaching my kids, teaching me, the maintenance worker, the policeman. And what we've seen just over the last few weeks is this unbelievable, barrage from folks wanting to act as if you don't provide any service. Acting as if you didn't, my partner's first instinct was to go to the firehouse for my kid. That's what this is all about, and why the other side, why Governor Walker, why the governor in Ohio, why the Congress of the United States has got their sights set on public workers really is mystifying to me. And it reminds me of sort of this analogy. So, everybody wants to talk about the budget as, a family budget. Well, families have to tighten their belt. The country should tighten a belt. The state should tighten its belt. The local government should tighten its belt. Okay, let's use that analogy, because I think it's fair in some ways, but we got to really look at the whole picture. So let's say it's a family. So the breadwinner in the early 2000s, these are the tax cuts, takes a voluntary pay cut, okay? Takes a voluntary pay cut by cutting taxes. Then that breadwinner decides, okay, let's build 2 houses just for grins, and not to minimize our war in the Middle East, but we then prosecute 2 wars. So that breadwinner now has taken a voluntary pay cut. He then decides to build 2 houses, so lots of expense attached to that, going along and has a heart attack, which was the crash on Wall Street a couple years ago, because it was a heart attack to our financial system. So now he has very little salary or income, but he's got a lot of hospital bills. So now the patient is finally getting on his feet, and somebody says, the Republicans, and I'm going to be partisan at this point because it's a Republican governor in Wisconsin, Republican governor in Ohio, Republican Congress under Speaker Boehner, saying, you know what, you're just getting on your feet. Those things that were helping you get on your feet, forget about them, and we want you to pay every hospital bill today. Well, that just isn't how things work. You do have to pay those hospital bills, but you do it with a plan and over time, and you do it when you have a paycheck. These guys, the way I've described it is, okay, so you know what? This is what we got to do. You got your family. You got Aunt Maud in the nursing home. You got nephew Joey in a preschool program, and you got Uncle Rex, who's an oil company exec. So what we've decided to do is we're going to take Aunt Maud out of the nursing home. We're going to take nephew Joey out of the preschool, but we're going to keep sending a check to Uncle Rex. That just isn't how this works. We're in this together. If anybody knows that we're in this together, it is all of you in the service that you provide. If we're going to do this, big guys, little guys, everybody in between has to participate in moving this country forward. And it isn't just to fall on the public sector employees or programs that help people get back on their feet. This is across the board. Now, the good news is that over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years, we've had 13 consecutive months where the private sector has been adding jobs. Unemployment has fallen below 9%, and our economy has grown 2.8% through most of 2010. And under President Obama, we're putting America back to work. But the bad news is the Tea Party Republicans running the show in Congress want to wipe out all that good news. They want to burn the house down because they think they're paying too much for the sewer service. This is not how this country operates. We are in this together. And although we are getting our nation back on track, we face 2 significant challenges. One is jobs, the other is the economy. And a recent poll by Bloomberg asked 1,000 Americans what the bigger priority for the federal government should be, cutting spending or creating jobs. Most said job creation. And it was 56 to 42. And I've been through some tight elections, and that's the other thing. I wanted to talk about the fact that you've helped me personally. The professional firefighters have helped me politically throughout my career. And I've had some tough races, and I can tell you it makes a difference if you've got the firefighters on your side. But in my opinion, a 56 to 42 is a decisive victory. In addition to the clear majority of the American people who want us to focus on jobs, top economists say the only way to lay the groundwork for long-term prosperity and a balanced budget is to get people back to work and paying taxes. So the best way to reduce the deficit, to pay the debt, is to have people working. That is job number 1, and that's job number 1 for me. These are economists like Ben Bernanke, the guy who advised John McCain, Mark Zandi. We've got to get people back to work. Instead of taking away the things that really are strengthening America, we've got to keep going forward as we have been. Now, I gave the analogy of the family, the Uncle or Aunt Maud and nephew Joey and Uncle Rex. Well, apparently, some of our friends in governor's offices as well as the Congress think that if you're a member of a union, you definitely shouldn't be paid, that you're not providing any service. That is exactly the wrong approach. I'm a member of the Laborers Local 720 and have been since I was working construction in high school and college. For me, organized labor, thanks. And my dad would say, you know, I was a laborer, then I was a lawyer. I couldn't do anything in between because I don't have any fine motor skills. But it is organized labor and the ability to collectively bargain are essential to building the middle class. And we've continued to see that the middle class is shrinking. And the strength of our nation is the middle class. So you all and your ability to collectively bargain, whether it's in Wisconsin or Colorado or any place else, is key to the strength of our nation. And we need to put people back to work, and in my opinion, if they join a union, that's good news for them and their families and for the future of our nation. Now, I know I'm supposed to talk about Social Security, so I'll get to Social Security. The issue that that has been brought up is under the Debt Commission's proposal, they're trying to figure out a way to make Social Security, Medicare, and some of the entitlements stronger, more secure, and at the same time pay down our debt. There are a lot of ways to do that. And going back to the family analogy, you know, and this, don't let people confuse the subject. When we had the crash in the fall of 2008, we had all sorts of hospital bills. Now, we were paying the mortgage being Social Security, mortgage being Medicare, sort of long-term responsibilities, getting a little harder as we get older, and these programs, we got to make sure that they're strong and successful going way into the future, but it wasn't Social Security, it wasn't Medicare, you know, that caused our immediate financial problems. What we've got to do is have a good program to get out, and there's an effort to do that. But the Deficit Commission and 6 senators want to do it really focusing on the backs of professional firefighters. They want to, as you all have paid into your pensions, they want to say, forget about that, you're now on Social Security, and we think that that is a particularly painful approach. It's recommendation 5.8, which would require all new state and municipal employees to participate in Social Security. And according to the firefighters, professional firefighters, 70% of America's professional firefighters do not currently participate in Social Security. You have your own pensions across the country, and despite what Republican governors or Secretary Boehner or these 6 senators would say, these pensions are secure. Those of you who have a pension system entered into your job knowing full well you would pay into the fund and knowing full well you would someday benefit from that fund. You make major life decisions around your pension. Decisions like what home to buy, what investments to make, and what college to send your kids to. You've placed your family's financial security into that pension. The Commission's report would be devastating to your retirement security. Now in the Senate, several senators have formed working groups to introduce legislation mirroring the Debt Commission's report. I'm encouraged by their work, but the mandatory Social Security participation is a real problem and should end up on the cutting room floor of the Senate. And there are 4 reasons as you go around the Hill and are talking to people. First, it isn't fair to cities, counties, or states. Experts have analyzed this proposal and believe it doesn't solve the problem. It merely hands the problem off to someone else. In fact, what it would do is put greater pressure on the budgets of cities and counties who must meet their contractual obligations in a defined benefit pension plan. Second, it isn't fair to current firefighters. If local governments are required to meet a bigger portion of the pension fund, they will require current employees to pay a larger and larger share of their paycheck to the pension to make up for the lost contributions of new hires. Third, it isn't fair to new employees. All of you go to war every day. And I mean that sort of in rhetoric and hyperbole, but each day you don't know what's coming. You know, take a look at the first responders in Japan right now. You don't know what's coming. It could be a 9/11. And I would say to my friends from Colorado, and I would invite all of you, we have a 9/11 stair climb at Red Rocks Amphitheater every year on September 11th to celebrate and to honor those firefighters who were fallen in New York that day. But it isn't fair to new people. You carry hundreds of pounds of gear upstairs, you get injured, you get beaten up, plain and simple. Most fire departments use NFPA standard 1582 to determine physical fitness on the job. By the time most firefighters hit their 50s, the years of wear and tear catch up with them. They can't meet. Some of you, I know, are still in fantastic shape, but some can't meet the fitness standards and they can't do their job anymore. At that point, they're too beaten up and too young to collect Social Security benefits. If we start requiring new employees to participate in Social Security, down the road they will be forced to work a second career when they're done with their firefighting. They'll be physically worn from career of service but forced to work until they reach the Social Security retirement age of 67. And lastly, this recommendation doesn't solve the problem. The Debt Commission itself found of all their solutions to fix Social Security, this one was the least helpful. In fact, it only gets 8% of the way to Social Security solvency in 75 years. And it's worth noting that Senator Conrad, one of the gentlemen who's trying to figure out a way to get our budget back in shape, Senator Conrad himself believes Social Security should not be part of the deficit reduction plan. It is for all these reasons that I again ask the Senate to please not touch mandatory Social Security coverage. It is a solution in search of a problem, and as studies have shown, it simply will destroy the financial lives of generations of firefighters who have carefully planned their finances and are doing a good job with them. Now, I want to thank President Schaeferger, General Secretary Miller, Chief of Staff Gorman, Jim Lee, Kevin O'Connor, Barry Kasnitz, Shannon Meisner, Randy Atkinson, and Sean Jewell for inviting me today. This is an honor to be in front of you. I have a dry subject like Social Security to talk to you about. But when you're speaking to your representatives as you go to the Hill, there is a personal connection that each one of you will make. I'm sure every single member of Congress has an experience like I have with my child or something else. That personal experience is key. Then the political piece is very important. I think one of the reasons that guys like Scott Walker and other governors are focusing on you and on teachers and on police and on maintenance workers and on people that serve the public is because you are a potent force politically. Don't ever underestimate the power that you have. The service that you provide is great, and that's why you have the kind of power with members of Congress and with people at large, because they know what you do each and every day. I just thank you very much for letting me speak, and if somebody starts arguing with you like Laura, the conservative gal who said that public employees don't pay taxes, and if they do, they get a lot more than they give, just remember Chevy Chase and Jane Curtin. Thank you very much.